Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Public Works for today, Friday, August 25th, 2017.
Commissioner Rivas, Repenning James, Davis, and Jacinto are present. President James, we have a quorum. May we start with Bureau introductions, please, starting with Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Hassan Rod, Bureau of Sanitation.
Good morning, Frank Rinaldi with the Bureau of Contract Administration.
Good morning, Eddie Ohanian, Bureau of Engineering.
Good morning, David Rivera, Street Services.
Good morning, Ruben Flamenco, Bureau of Street Lighting.
Good morning, Ted Jordan, Public Works General Counsel.
Dr. Campos, Executive Officer. President James, we do not have any speaker cards under general public comment. We also do not have any commentary under the Neighborhood Council comment section. We did receive a series of emails that have been distributed to all commissioners on item number 3, and we also received speaker cards on item number 4.
Okay, we'll close general public comment as well as the Neighborhood Council category of commentary. Let me take care of a couple of housekeeping items before we get to a presentation from a special guest that we have this morning. There has been a request to continue agenda item number 1, Resolution of Acceptance, 1911 Act, Mar Vista near Venice Boulevard Improvement Project, based on a issue related to posting of notices. So, Dr. Campos, is there a date that the request to continue number 1 has been submitted, or no?
We do not have a date at this time. We're requesting to continue the item to a date to be determined in the future. Once we work with the Office of the City Clerks to establish a date for Council's hearing, we will then come back to this board to schedule a new hearing date in front of this board, and then the date for City Council will be confirmed at that time as well.
Okay. So, without objection, we'll continue agenda item number 1 accordingly. Agenda item number 3, Council District 2, tree removal, 11580 Sunshine Terrace. I've been notified that all of the parties are in agreement to a continuance to try and work this matter out, and that includes the council office to September 18th. So that's a continuance from today until September 18th, 2017. Any issue with that, colleagues? Okay, so we'll continue agenda item number 3 to September 18th, 2017. And then one final housekeeping administrative item. The mayor has approved and authorized the board on behalf of the Bureau of Sanitation to execute a personal services contract between the Bureau of Sanitation and Ecology Control Industries doing business as American Stormwater for the fabrication and installation of full capture catch basin inserts and curb opening screen covers for a term of 3 years and at a cost not to exceed $2.3 million. This had previously been before the board. Is there a second to my motion that we approve agenda item number 5 forthwith? By Commissioner Repenning. Any objection? Without objection, we will do so. While we're on the topic of the Bureau of Sanitation, I understand that today we welcome special guests who are visiting from the city of Ensenada in Baja California, Mexico. Mr. Zaldivar, would you like to do the introduction, or would you like me to?
I do, Mr. President, although the rest of the delegation is underway. They're just underway here. If you
so you want me? Why don't I take a matter and then you want me to, and then we'll come back to you?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Thank
We'll
you.
do that. Let's go to agenda item number 2, Council District 11, Memorandum of Agreement, Waste Collection, Transfer, and Disposal Services for Los Angeles International Airport. Recommending that the board approve and forward to the mayor's office the memorandum of agreement with Transmittals with the request that the Board of Public Works authorize the director of the Bureau of Sanitation to execute the following memorandum of agreement between the Bureau of Sanitation and Los Angeles World Airports for waste collection, transfer, and disposal services for Los Angeles International Airport, Manchester Square. Mr. Potter on agenda item number 2.
Good morning, President James, Commissioners, Bureau Reps, City Attorney, and Executive Officer. I'm Robert Potter with LA San. Today we're asking for the approval of an MOA with LAWA, LA World Airports. LAWA requested LA San to do periodic cleanups of Manchester Square, a project area which will be developed by LAWA in the near future. The proposed MOA is for waste collection, transfer, and disposal services from the project area, which includes only property owned and controlled by LAWA. LAWA has requested from LA San to clean the project area at least once every 2 months. The cleanup will be conducted on Saturdays, and the rates for these services include labor, vehicle, tipping fees, and other contractual services. The rates are to be reviewed annually and adjusted accordingly with full cost recovery. Costs for completed tasks specifically authorized by this MOA shall be payable to LA San. The site is located in West Los Angeles District on the eastern vicinity of Los Angeles International Airport and bordered by Arborvitae Street to the north, La Cienega Boulevard to the east, Century Boulevard on the south, and Aviation Boulevard to the west. Most of the project area has been acquired by LAWA. The project area consists mainly of vacant lots and structures, and thus is prone to illegal dumping and homeless encampments. LAWA police will provide any necessary law enforcement to facilitate the cleanups. The proposed term of this MOA is 1 year. The MOA has no impact on the general fund, and the total funding is not to exceed $150,000. It is therefore requested that the Board of Public Works approve the MOA between LA San and LAWA for waste collection, transfer, and disposal services.
All right, thank you, Mr. Potter. We'll start with Commissioner Repenning.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So this site that we're going to be cleaning in partnership with the airport is slated for development, correct?
Correct.
As part of the airport's modernization build-out.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what they're going to put there, but I think it's part of the LAMP project, so it'll be built out and be owned and operated by LAWA.
So just for clarification, in the meantime, it's become kind of a nuisance site. I think attracts a lot of homeless encampments.
It's the area. The area has been. A lot of the properties have already been leveled, so it's just a wide open area with existing street structures, but doesn't have, housing or people there. So it's become an area where there's illegal dumping, homeless encampments, a lot of things that are happening because it's not an active area.
Okay, so I think this is a good thing. I think it shows recognition of the value that that sanitation brings to the city by another city agency. So I appreciate the fact that they're willing to actually spend some money to make sure that we can help them keep that area clean. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Repenning. Anything further on agenda item number 2? Is that a motion on agenda item number 2 by Commissioner Repenning? I'll second it along with Commissioners Jacinto and Davis. Any objection? With that objection, we will adopt agenda item number 2 accordingly. Is there any issue sending it forthwith? Thank you, sir. We will send agenda item number 2 forthwith. Is there a second to my motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the meeting of Monday, August 7th, 2017 by Commissioner Repenning? Any objection? With that objection, we will do so. Mr. Zaldivar, are you ready at this point? Yeah. Okay, great. You have the floor, sir.
Well, good morning, President James, commissioners, and Bureau executives. We are honored, in fact, to be visited by Mayor Marco Antonio Novello Osuna, the mayor of the city of Ensenada. And any one of us, or many of us, think of Ensenada as a place that we would go and spend part of our summer or part of our school time, and whether it was during your college years or even as a child. Certainly for me, in my past, I went to Ensenada as part of family outings and as part of then college excursions, and only to do scientific studies. And
Same here.
On fermentation and distillation. But, some of the great iconic names that we came to know, like Husong's and Papas and Beer, and some of the other great places, always felt at home in Ensenada. So when our labor liaison, Andy Morales, who works for us in sanitation, rekindled a bit of a relationship in his own ambassadorial outings in Ensenada, they initiated a new conversation about the mayor of Ensenada wanting to come visit LA and reestablish ties. I mean, we share the same climate. We share, in part, the same name. I always knew there was a Baja California. You go far back enough, there used to be an Alta California. If there's an Alta, I guess there's a Baja. But nonetheless, both Californias. So I think we're much closer than it appears to be. So we are very pleased to have the mayor come and visit, and we are growing an exchange of ideas, best practices around the environmental space, public services. You'll hear him mention how important public services is, what you oversee in this commission, how important it is for him. So without any more, I would like to ask Mayor Marco Antonio to come up and speak to you. Mr. Mayor, if you can please come up.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for this invitation, Mr. President. I just want to let you know that Los Angeles is my second home, and I want to tell you why. I'm a USC Trojan, 1982. Are you UCLA? I don't know. Oh, Fred.
You have a Trojan right here, though, too, and an adopted here. So, yeah. You're in good company, sir.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I know, thank you very much. It's a great honor to stand before you. I thank you for giving this opportunity to address you today. Besides politician, I'm more like a businessman, a hotel business for a long time. My grandfather founded a Estero Beach Hotel, and I just want you to know that 20,000 American citizens live in Ensenada. We host 200 in Estero Beach, and the tourism that comes down to Ensenada is from Southern California, from Los Angeles. And for me, it's very important because I'm pro-American. My education, I did my education in Claremont, California, web school, high school, and also at USC. My background, well, I used to play tennis. I played for USC, 1978, 1981. I have a lot of friends. This afternoon, after I finish the events here, I'm going to go and see a couple of my friends that I haven't seen in 20 years. So I'm very happy. Ensenada, well, it's a city of 500,000 inhabitants, and I've been mayor for 8 months, working on focusing on financial issues and also the service, public services. We are working on the streets, which is very important. I mean, one of the we had 8 years of abandon. I can tell you that on the last administration. But right now we are working on the streets, on safety issues, on water issues. We have a problem and shortage of water. We are recycling water from our plants, which is very important. And also we are working together with the society. What I'm saying is that government alone is very hard to succeed. So we got all the businessmen working together on those issues, safety issues, public service issues. We have the biggest municipality in Mexico. I'm talking about the territory. 70% of the territory in Baja California is in Ensenada. So we have, as I mentioned, 519,830 residents. It's only 68 miles from San Diego, south of the border, and it's the safest, and I can tell you, safest city, one of the safest cities in Mexico. We also have 692 miles of coastline along the Pacific Ocean and the Sea of Cortez, which allow us to have commercial and sport fishing. I see a lot of the Americans that come from Southern California, Orange County, pulling their boats down to Ensenada to go fishing. From 2015 to 2017, our port has become very competitive. From receiving 4 TEUs annually to 200,000, which generates more than 4,500 direct employments, with more than 698,000 passengers a year. We also become the first cruise ship port in the Pacific. We have marinas, shipyards, and several green certifications and awards. Education in Ensenada is also an important part of our life. With 25 universities and more than 5 scientist research institutes. We are being called the Scientist City in Mexico. Another part that is making everybody talk about Ensenada is our wine industry. 90% of the Mexican wine have been named the capital wine of Mexico. 90% of our Mexican wine is produced in Ensenada. However, as every great city, we also face great challenges. And even then, more than 15,000, I mentioned already, American families that live in our land and give testimony of how effective and constant we work as a community for safety goals and economic development. We have to face one point of our reality. Our population is spread in more than 1,100 small communities. Along the more than 20,000 square miles extension of our municipality. This is the main reason I'm here today, to talk to you about the great people of Ensenada and to thank you for all this goodwill. You always show us to commit on the care of those resources, and they're grateful for our relationship. Thank you very much. Mi casa es su casa. And I'm going to extend an invitation to Ensenada. I just want to let you know once again that this year, tourism have grown 20%, national and Americans. And mi casa es su casa. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, would you mind just introducing the
Yes.
members of your delegation that are here?
Yes, I would like to introduce you, Oscar. Vamos a decirle quién eres.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for having us. My name is Javier Gutierrez, and I'm the Director of International Affairs of the City of Ensenada.
Rafael.
Great. Thank you, sir.
He's the Chief President Office.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
Sir, Commissioner Davis?
Well, first, I would like to welcome you here to Los Angeles, Mayor Osuna.
Thank you.
It's no secret that I think that Ensenada has the best leadership possible because he's a graduate of USC, of which I am also. So we thank you for that. And I want to say to you that you certainly are a great mind because, as you know, California is 1/6 of the nation's economy. Some people say the world's economy. So in terms of collaboration, you could not have picked a better place to come to collaborate to help further enhance the economic development of Ensenada. Also, I'd like to say to you, you're here in public works. The mayor of Los Angeles runs the city based upon what he calls a back-to-basic principle, which includes some values that we all believe in and that we are guided by. And we believe that the infrastructure in the city of Los Angeles is critically important. And I think in particular, you're with the Bureau Chief of Sanitation. You have mentioned the importance of water. We have a great wastewater system. We have a great stormwater system. We have the latest and innovative technologies that we use here, all of these certainly could be of use to you as you move forward to improve the service and the technologies in your own place. But also I want to say that we in Public Works have street services where they are critically important to target how we improve our very own streets. The mayor has a great streets program. We have a clean streets program where we put resources around cleaning streets that are our biggest challenge. And also, we have used technology on how we light this place up, because we have areas in this town where it needs to be lit at all times. And so we've used the best of technology that has allowed us to increase the lighting around Los Angeles. And quite frankly, when I fly into Los Angeles, one of the most beautiful sights is to see all of the lights when you're landing in this great city. And finally, I will say to you, of all the technology we provide, one of the most critically important services that we provide is jobs, because all of this work being done creates jobs, and we treasure creating the opportunity to make sure that those jobs are reinvested back into the people who live here in Los Angeles. And it is one of our driving principles. So again, I thank you so very much for being here. And of course, the leadership of a Trojan is always something that's going to make a difference. And I'm confident that you're going to make a difference there. And we look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davis.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Commissioner Rivas.
Bienvenido.
Gracias.
It was great to meet you and your team yesterday evening. I really enjoyed learning more about Ensenada and particularly the industries that are big, and the research, all the science research that you do around marine protected areas was very interesting to me. I'm very excited that you're here to collaborate with LA Sanitation. I know they're taking care of you and making sure that your team and you have a great day. And so thank you for visiting us, and I hope we can all visit and have an off-site meeting in Ensenada. But thank you for your invitation to all of us, and for opportunity to collaborate and learn from you too.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your hospitality.
Thank you, Commissioner Rivas. Commissioner Jacinto.
Thank you, President James. Alcalde Osuna, welcome back to
Thank
Los
you.
Angeles, sir, from
Thank you very much.
Bruin. I appreciate our Bureau leadership, Enrique, and your staff for making the connection between an important city. Ensenada is very, very close. Baja and Alta, it's just right on the other side. And there's always been a fluid visiting of visitors, of residents between our cities, our regions. And to hear you talk about what you're doing with business development, with environmental, and really working with our Bureau, who's leading our nation in these types of things, is a great affirmation of your leadership, sir. So welcome back anytime, and I'm glad that you're going to touch base with your compadres from USC after all this time, because I think that was a very important part of your life. And so decimos en la Filipinas, mabuhay, que viva usted y todo su parte.
Muchas gracias. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacinto. Commissioner Penning.
Bienvenido.
Muchas gracias.
Very happy to help welcome you as well to City Hall and to the great city of Los Angeles. I think it's always well worth the time that we take to get to know our neighbors, especially in a destination as important as Ensenada is to Los Angeles. I think most of us have had the opportunity to visit your city, to spend time there relaxing, to get away from the craziness that LA can be at times. So Enrique and to your team at Sanitation, thank you for putting the visit together and the exchange together. I hope that everyone has had a chance to learn and share a lot, and you're welcome back here anytime. Nuestra casa es su casa.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Penning. I don't have much to add, Mr. Mayor, other than thank you very much for bringing the delegation, taking the time to all of you to come see our amazing city of Angels that so many people from all over the world call home. Thank you to the Bureau of Sanitation, Enrique, the folks at Sanitation, for leading the delegation from the City of Los Angeles side, and for bringing the crew here this morning. You know, Public Works really is kind of the nitty-gritty of operating a city, as I like to say, and I was very pleased, of course, to hear that you are in communication with our sanitation team regarding water policy. It's obviously a huge priority for us here in the city of Los Angeles, not just the city, but indeed the entire state of California. We look forward to continuing and growing our relationships particularly with municipalities in Mexico. And I think I have some similarity with Mr. Zaldivar in our warm feelings for Ensenada and great memories. I've only had wonderful times there. I was a bit younger the last time I was there. I would like to get back now that I'm in my more senior years of life, and definitely plan on doing so. And we'll let you know, maybe give you a little advance notice as well. So
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it. What I would like to do, if we could, just take a brief recess from our agenda for a group photograph, which we like to do when we have important delegations here, and then we'll get back on our agenda. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone, and welcome back to our Board of Public Works agenda. Agenda item number 4, Council District 13, above-ground facility appeal, lot adjacent to 3301 West Sunset Boulevard. Commissioner Cento recommending that the board deny Ryan Newman's appeal of the Bureau of Engineering's determination to locate the above-ground facility adjacent to 3301 West Sunset Boulevard with the condition that the proposed cabinet be moved 517 feet north of the center line of Descanso Drive. This has been continued a couple of times. The original board date was May 15, 2017. I know the parties have been working on this a bit. Let's start with Mr. Liu from the Bureau of Engineering, just summarizing kind of where we are, and then we will go to our two speakers and find out if there's anything substantive additionally that the board needs to do. Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, President. Good morning, commissioners and the bureau heads and executive officer. My name is Warren Liu. I'm working at Central District Bureau of Engineering, and today is the AGF appeal case, location at 3301 West Sunset Boulevard. The company for the permit application is AT&T. They at Council District 13. The position from the Council District is neutral. Zoning for this location is commercial. Facility applied for is one standard AT&T cabinet, 48-inch high by 42.8-inch wide and 19.9-inch deep. The appellant is Ryan Neiman, the company's representative for 3303 Sunset LLC. The reason for appeal is the property is under development and would hammer their planning. In our file records, the original location is at east side of the Sunset Boulevard, 41 feet north of Descanso Drive, and also alternative locations of 517 feet north of Descanso Drive. And after the developer presenting the development map or plans to the applicant, the solution location is 466.5 north of Descanso Drive. And I have a map here, shows the 3 locations. I'm going to pass them.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Liu before we continue? It sounds like we have a resolution. Let me, thank you, Mr. Liu. Let me go to the appellant and with the appellant, not the applicant, but Ryan Lederman from Liner LLP. Welcome back, sir.
Good morning, President James and commissioners. My name is Ryan Lederman. So we do have an agreement as to the location as depicted on this attached drawing. We haven't seen any further revised drawings, but so long as it's conditioned for this location in front of Lot 16, we're very comfortable with that.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Pelez, Noah? Did I say your last name correctly? No, I never do.
I've heard them all, so not a problem.
So I'll call you Noel, but
I appreciate that. Noel Palais with AT&T.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Good morning, Mr. President, commissioners.
Correct, sir.
Board executives. I'm sorry?
I said correct.
Thank you, sir. As Mr. Lederman did indicate, we do have an agreed upon location, which also adhere to your recommendations that there not be an additional notification period on that, and we're amenable to the location that was recommended to them.
Great.
That was recommended by them to us. So I'd like to thank
Great.
you for
So
working with us on this.
then what we will do is, Mr. Campos, do we need to amend what we're recommending to get this approved that satisfies both parties here?
Yes, you would. You would have to recommend to adopt the report as amended with the new location as proposed.
That's exactly what my motion
Yes,
would,
yes.
what my motion would be. So We are, my motion is to adopt the report as amended to approve the location as proposed. So is there a second by Commissioner Jacinto? Any objection? Without objection, we'll adopt agenda item number 4 as stated. Any opposition to sending it forthwith? We will send it forthwith. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and work on this. Dr. Campos, does that clear us for the regular meeting?
Yes, it does.
Okay, then the regular meeting is adjourned. We have a special meeting, Dr. Campos, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. President. For roll call purposes, for the special meeting, we have Commissioner Rivas, Commissioner Repenning, Commissioner James, Commissioner Davis, and Commissioner Jacinto. We do have a quorum for the special agenda. President James, we do not have any speaker cards under general public comment, no neighborhood council commentary, and we also did not receive any speaker cards on the special agenda.
Okay, then we will close general public comment as well as the neighborhood council category of commentary. Let me find my agenda sheet on the special. Could I have that? Yeah, there we go. Special 1, Council District 1, hearing and change order number 113, Los Angeles Police Department Police Academy Project, replacement training facility and administration building, cafe, and 4 shooting ranges renovation. There are a few recommendations here, so let me read through the recommendations. Do we have any speaker cards on special 1?
None submitted. No.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, I figured somebody was here anyway, so we do need them for the record, so you can go ahead and fill them out while I'm reading through this. Recommending that the board first find that Kemp's claim lacks merit in part and that Kemp is only entitled to $791,300 and 193 additional calendar days based on the unforeseen site utility redesign, mechanical shaft redesign, and the transformer and pedestal for fire water booster pump redesign. Secondly, authorize the city engineer to issue construction unilateral change order number 113 to Kemp for an amount not to exceed $791,300 associated with unforeseen site underground utility redesign, mechanical shaft redesign, and the transformer and pedestal for fire water booster pump redesign. Third, authorize the city engineer to issue a deductive change order in the amount of $267,550 for the replacement and repair for the air conditioning units 1 and 3 at the Police Academy Training Building. Fourth, authorize $406,278 in additional contingency and approve a revised construction budget of $19,701,326 for the LAPD Police Academy project. And then I have an "and" with no additional page. So I'm not sure what the "and" is, but we will find it in a moment. Oh, here we go. Thank you, Commissioner Jacinto. And receive and file the disputed change order log for no merit. So I'm assuming that's it. Thank you. You have the magic copy. All right. So let's start with, as we get our speaker cards in, Ms. Weintraub, whoever from the Bureau of Engineering would like to, Mr. Kawaguchi, however you all want to do this.
Good morning, Commissioners.
One moment.
Your heads.
Okay, so just so you all know, I've got 2 cards from Kemp Brothers, and as a real party in interest, we do not put a time limit on you, so as you sit here and listen, prepare your comments accordingly. The only thing we ask is, that I ask is that if you feel like you need to repeat yourself, then I'm going to feel like you've said everything you need to say. And we'll move on accordingly. So, Mr. Kawaguchi, we will start with you, sir.
Okay. Good morning, Commissioners, Bureau Heads, Mr. Jordan, Dr. Campos. My name is Alan Kawaguchi. I'm with the Bureau of Engineering. I'm the Program Manager for the Proposition Q Citywide Public Safety Bond. I'm joined also, that'll also be speaking, is Jason Nolting. He's from our consultant firm of C2G International. I also have with me, Commander Tom Brennan and Sergeant Dave Reimers from the LAPD, who kind of oversee the facility, the police academy facility. Joyce Marr is the project manager that was running the project, and our Chief Deputy, Deborah Weintraub. For some background on the project in general, the Board of Public Works awarded the Police Academy Administration Cafe Renovation Training Facility on June 27, 2014 to Kemp Brothers Incorporated. This facility is located at 1880 North Academy Road Drive. The contract was awarded for $34,361,490 with a contingency value of approximately 12.3%. So the contingency we had in our hand was $4,263,516. As of today, the Bureau of Engineering has issued change orders totaling $4,132,521. The notice to proceed for this project was issued on July 21st, 2014. The contract duration is 600 calendar days. Contract end date is March 12, 2016. That date's important because it's going to come up a few more times during the presentation. Kemp Brothers' claim, which was filed on April 21st, 2017, is broken down as follows. They have a 332 day of delay caused by the city. We have an agreed to overhead rate of $4,100 per day. The delay owed to Kemp Brothers is $1,361,200. That's pretty much the simple math of multiplying the 332 times the 4,100. It brings us to a new contract end date of March 13th, 2017. In addition, their other second part of the way I break down their claim is they have another section of they're disputing a total of 56 change orders, totaling $442,648.53. This doesn't include the unilateral change order that we have, number 113. This gives their total claim that they're submitting in $1,803,848.53.
Alan, would you? Oh wait. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. The next picture we have is, in general, is just the location of the facility. This is the campus of the police academy. On the right-hand side, you see some. It's kind of shaded out buildings. The first building, kind of going north from the parking structure or parking lot, is the administration building, the cafe, the 4 shooting ranges you see above it. Across the street from it is the training facility. It's just above that oval track area. With that, I'm going to bring up our consultant that did an analysis on the delay, and he'll be speaking to the delay at this point.
And just again, your name and company for our record.
Yes, sir. President James, Commissioners, members of the city. My name is Jason Nolting. I'm with a company called C2G International. Before I start in on my assignment, just a little background on my company, myself as well, not to be marketing in any way, just some context of what I do for a living. My firm is a full-time forensic scheduling consulting firm, so we work in complex capital projects for both owners and contractors about 50% of the time. We are brought in on projects like these to help forensically analyze what was planned to happen, what actually happened, and ultimately help typically attorneys, present causation, who was responsible and who should pay. Specifically, as you see on the slide here, I'm going to cover the next 3 bullets, which are a summary of the overall schedule performance on the project. Mr. Kawaguchi laid out the plan for the project, which was 600 calendar days. That did not happen, as evidences of us being here today in this special meeting. My second bullet is to provide some of my observations as what I would consider an independent reviewer of some of the Kemp Brothers or the contractor's submissions for extensions to the schedule. Very transparently, I was not the one performing those analyses contemporaneously. I've been asked to independently review them, obviously on behalf of the city, but after the fact, and I'll provide some observations there. And then the third bullet, to present, again, observations or opinions on the current city offer to settle up the delays and impacts to the project. And some thoughts around what I believe the reasonableness of that offer as it currently stands.
I realize that this technology that saves us so much time always costs us a lot of time.
Always on the record
yeah.
live. Yes, yes, sir.
So why don't we have it on paper? So
Okay, what I'll do in absence of, or until we get the technology working, I'll call out the slide number, which is in the top right corner, just to make sure we're all oriented and seeing the same thing. Slide number 8 is a summary of excuse me, I passed over slide 9. Before I get into the forensic component of the actual schedule analysis, I wanted to orient the group that the contract, the Kemp Brothers construction contract, was really made up of what I'd call 2 scopes of work. There was, Mr. President, you read in your remarks the replacement training facility, where I've got on slide 7 there the acronym PAT. I'll try to refer to it as either the PAT or the replacement facility, as well as the renovation of the administrative building, obviously some components of the shooting range. That's an important concept that I want to introduce, and I'm going to continue to kind of hammer home, because the overall project duration is driven from the start through the completion of the project by the training facility. Therefore, an extension to the overall duration of the project, one would have to illustrate impact to that component to prove up and shore up that extension. And I'll show you pictorially what I'm going to talk about here. So slide 8, up at the top, my charts, the blue color is always the as planned, or in this instance, the contract duration. And you can see I've got the 2 blue bars at the top of slide 8. One is for the renovation project, showing the notice to proceed date on the far left, or the planned completion date in early January of 16. And then, as I just said, the training facility project is contemplated in the original contract, or at the baseline of the schedule, 600 calendar days from inception through substantial completion as planned on March 12, 2016, and controlling or driving the overall duration of the performance of the contractor in this instance. Down below, I've got in red bars my as-built, or the actual performance of the work. Briefly, the dates you see there, the notice to proceed dates, as well as the substantial completion dates for the 2 scopes of work, arise directly out of the contractor's schedule. You can see there that on October 1st, 2016, the renovation project was completed. On October 26th, 2016, the project reached a final inspection or substantial completion. That is, the parties agreed that it was complete enough for the city or the police department to occupy the facility. At that point, parties demobilized from the project. As you can see there was still some ongoing work. And in fact, as of today, there's still ongoing work. The contractor is working through trying to resolve some issues with the HVAC units. Nonetheless, that milestone of substantial completion on October 26th is very relevant, I believe, to this overall analysis. And as I show in the middle there, I'm comparing the blue bars above the planned overall substantial completion date of March 12th, 16 versus the as-built or actual substantial completion date of October 26th. Mathematically, I believe the project was delayed 228 calendar days. Again, those dates are just a mathematical calculation of difference between the plan and the as-built. Having established the performance of the project, again, there was delay, no doubt about it. I wanted to peel back the onion and talk a little bit about the contemporaneous time impact analyses or submissions on behalf of the contractor, and I'll share some thoughts on that. I am not an attorney. I am a licensed engineer. I do read dozens and dozens of construction agreements and contracts, and most, if not all, include similar language to what I've presented here on slide 10. And some of this is just a practical matter. Really, the 2 highlighted bullets there, this is again Division 1 right out of the contract. A delay which occurs for which a contractor is seeking a time extension must be outside of the control of the contractor, or rather it must in this instance be the responsibility of the city. That's kind of the first threshold and the first bar. The second is that for a contractor to be entitled to an extension of the time or compensation during that extended period of time, it has to extend the overall project. Again, very common language and consistent with this project, as I've shared. The training facility was the driver, both in the as-plan and the as-built. So we want to focus on that from my perspective when considering whether or not the contractor is entitled to time and or cost. Moving on to slide 11, admittedly a bit of a busy slide, but again, in my I believe independent role, or my attempt to be as independent as possible, I wanted to look at the chronology of the contractor's monthly schedule submissions, a very common practice for a contractor to submit contemporaneously on a monthly basis. to an owner agency how the project is performing. And as you can see there, the as planned for the two projects, the renovation and the training on the top, throughout the entire history of the project, I'm illustrating the performance of the job, and you can see there's no debate. The project is slipping to the right. It is being delayed. And the other observation I have there is it is always the training facility, that is the longest of those two red bars, again, indicating and satisfying me that that is the driver of the overall performance period of the contract, and where I would deem most focus should be placed when considering delay or cost. Slide 12 was an attempt, and we had some animation to break up a pretty busy slide here, but it really is to illustrate the contractor's time impact analyses or submissions over time or contemporaneously on the project. You can see in the top bullet there were 10 formal TIAs or time impact analyses submitted with 6 revisions throughout the project, so a total of 16 submissions. And real briefly, to keep this concise, a time impact analysis is a forensic scheduling term we use pretty consistently in the industry. It is an attempt to model an impact or alleged impact to the forward progress of the work, and to illustrate and communicate that to the owner as to how many days it caused. So these are just effectively reports or analyses that are being submitted over time. Second bullet, the PAR scope of work. 7 of those 16 TIAs were submitted, and very, very prominently, I'll share in my next slide, I believe articulate alleged impact to the PAR or the renovation project. I'm not here to debate whether or not those were impacts. They were material impacts. I've not spent a lot of time in that, admittedly, for the sole reason that project never drove the overall duration or as-built duration of the participation of the contractor. They may have merit, they may not. Many of them had issues with how they were submitted. The city's got a very good record, I think, of responding to those submissions and technical issues they saw. My view and my illustration here is to simply say that 7 of them, as submitted, never impacted the overall duration. So how could they therefore drive the overall time on the project? 3 of the TIAs did impact the training facility, as you see on the bottom. And while I'll tell you, and I'm getting ahead of myself, the city did see and does currently see merit to those requests. It identified either technical flaws or failure to comply with the contract in those submissions, and I'll go through some examples of that in a second. Slide 13, I always find when I'm doing these types of presentations, which I do for a living, it's one thing to show the demonstrative charts and the pretty colors. Here, just from the project record, I've incorporated the 7 TIAs or time impact analyses for the renovation facility, and highlighted on the cover sheet of these documents. Certainly I've done further analysis, but on the face value or the cover sheet of the contemporaneous record, the renovation project is identified, so that there wasn't a steep learning curve to come up to understand whether or not this was a training facility or a renovation facility. The contractor was telling the city contemporaneously, this is an impact to the renovation and not the training facility. Further, the narratives and some of the analyses behind each of these 7 submissions on the renovation project also articulate that the impact is to an interim milestone, not necessarily the overall project duration or substantial completion, but to an interim milestone that's resulting from alleged impacts on the renovation project. Also interesting that no doubt that milestone moved, but it wasn't driving overall performance, and I wanted to highlight that. I'm on slide number 14. Here's an example of the training facility, the first training facility time impact submission by the contractor. I'm sure hard to see on the screen. I never know how big the screens are going to be, but I will summarize what I've reviewed, how I've reviewed the city's response and why I think it was reasonable. On the center in the first red square there, and I'll summarize, the city is basically articulating that the narrative request of approximately 157 calendar days of delay rising out of some issues with underground utilities doesn't match up or line up with the actual supporting documentation. There's just a mathematical or an administrative disconnect between what's being reflected in the model and what's being written. I think very, very fair and justified for the city to push back and say, we don't understand, please revise and resubmit. That was done, and that was never corrected to my knowledge. The second example on the top right is effectively the city coming back to the contractor and saying, we understand your model, we understand what you're trying to show us, but in your model, as you identify activities that are allegedly pushing out the overall completion date of the project, you're not considering what actually happened to those activities. In fact, In the theoretical, if you compare theoretical to actual, those activities actually took place before. You mitigated or resequenced your work, and they took place before the impacted activity. Therefore, it makes it almost impossible to rely on that analysis because it doesn't line up with the as-built or the actual performance of the work. TA number 7, very quickly and somewhat similarly, the first response from the city, that this was pertaining to a mechanical shaft that was discussed earlier. The requested days for this impact were actually less than the overall delays to the project. So while the contractor was illustrating perhaps delay to the start of this mechanical shaft, the overall project was being delayed by more days than that impact, illustrating to me forensically that other things were driving the completion date, not necessarily the mechanical shaft. Otherwise, I would have seen a very close correlation between the delays to mechanical shaft and the delays of the project. That didn't exist, and again, further, I think supports the city questioning the model. Again, that was never corrected, or I believe never responded to. Slide number 16, there's obviously a lengthy chronology, and I've got a slide to summarize that, but Alan mentioned the current request of the contractor, presumably because it never got schedule relief or was never able to answer the questions from the city arising out of these TIAs, is a request for 332 days compensable time extension, which would extend the overall performance of the project from that March 12th or 600 calendar day mark of 2016 out to March 13th of 2017. Alan mentioned, or Ms. Kawaguchi mentioned, the mathematical calculation is then 332 times the rate of $4,100 per day for those time-related general conditions costs. My observations on the request in general are included on slide 17. I'm going back to my initial slide that I led off with as kind of the foundation, or what I believe just a mathematical calculation of what the actual delay was. I'm again showing that here in the yellow bar, measuring calendar days from March 12th through the actual substantial completion date or final inspection date on October 26, 2016, 228 days. As I just mentioned, the Kemp request actually seeks 332 compensable days, which would mathematically take the contract or the project out to February 7th, 2017, and it's then asking, just again mathematically, for another 34 excusable days, so days that the contract time would be extended, but the cost would not actually be recovered, for a total request of 366 days. My observations and consulting notes up above, I actually maybe will be enlightened today, and I'm not trying to be critical. I don't understand how a contractor can get more time than the project was actually delayed. That as a practical matter doesn't make any sense to me. Further, I understand from working with the city that, again, as I mentioned earlier, the parties actually demobilized from the site on or about October 26, 2016. So with regard to the incurring of actual costs, actual time-related costs like project managers, supervision, field conditions like trailers and latrines and things that you would use to maintain your staff in the field, those costs were not actually being incurred, at least not to the extent as a full-blown operational project. They would not have been incurred to that level. Again, I think making it difficult for the contractor to support that extension beyond substantial completion. I'm on slide 18, which is the city offer to settle delays and impacts generally. Slide 19 is kind of my chronology, and I give this for context in that there obviously was a lengthy, you can see almost a 2.5 to 2+ year duration with regard to coming to some conclusion on the excusing and compensating for the extended duration that never got resolved. So I've reviewed the city's offer, which I believe currently stands today. But did want to share the chronology and kind of the lengthy back and forth related to these issues.
Any offer would have to be approved by the Board of Public Works. I mean, it might be a recommendation, but any offer would have to still be approved by the board. So with that condition, but go ahead. I don't know that it would, but go ahead.
Understood. Slide 20. Is the current offer, and I'm summarizing here. There's analysis that I've reviewed behind this offer. This analysis has been done contemporaneously, as well as summarized here in the 193 calendar day offer for excusable compensable delay. That offer would extend alone the completion date as concluded in that last sentence in the first bullet of the project from March 12, 2016 to September 21st, 2016. Further, I understand and have reviewed documents indicating the city's offer also includes a non-compensable yet excusable additional extension from September 22nd, 2016, or the next day, through the actual final completion or substantial completion date on October 26, 2016. As I mentioned, I won't go into a lot of detail in this forum. I've done a lot of analysis on whether or not I think the offer by the city was reasonable. I largely do. I think the methodology was consistent with the contract and how we would typically do it in the industry. But stepping up a level, I often always look at my own analysis or the analysis of other consultants or experts that I'm working against. And I put into context, how does that compare, or the results compare to reality? You can see here that the same 228 calendar days of delay to substantial completion actually compares very favorably, in fact, day for day, with the city's offer. A couple of observations there in the top right is that this offer for compensable time extension actually puts blame at the feet of the city for 85% of the overall delay to the project. I think the analysis behind that is very supported. And I also think that's a very reasonable, offer. Further, the remaining days are not tied to dollars, but they are not currently tied to liquidated damages necessarily. So the full contract delay is basically being excused on behalf of the contractor. I also wanted to mention here as well. You see the light red or the light pink bar down on the bottom. It's my understanding, again, just through interviews with the city, that the project or the contract is actually still ongoing. There are still issues the contractor is working through related to the HVAC systems. There are still administrative closeout items like operations and maintenance manuals, training, those typical closeout as-builting of the actual design records that are still being accomplished, have not been completed. Further, again, I think making this offer from the city for no better words, very reasonable when there is a clear concurrent or ongoing delay that the contractor is still working through. That is all I have, but thank you for your time. I'll turn it back to Mr. Kawaguchi.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The second part of Kemp's claim is on change orders. They have a disputed amount of 56 change orders totaling $440,000. I want to walk the board a little bit through what a change order is. Typically, when a change order is occurred, the contractor normally notifies the city. Our general condition of specifications it states that the contractor may include in statement of claims in their written notice as hereto specified. Failure to comply, notify the city within 20 days, they waive their rights to that item. So just to let you know, some of these requests that we were getting on change orders were coming in 14 to 18 months later. Typically, when we get a change order from a contractor, first thing we do is we look at it for what we call entitlement. Entitlement, we're trying to sit and see if is there validity to the change order itself. We normally run it through a check against the plans. We run it through a look at the specifications. At this point, we will then determine if the change order or the request for compensation has merit. If it does have merit, the city performs its own independent analysis of cost. We negotiate with the contractor and we issue a change order to the contractor. If we find that the change order has no merit, we write that down as no merit, and we normally cite as to where in the plans of why we decide it's a no merit change order. This next slide. I'm going to summarize kind of the change order just because I think it's a lot to go through. When we did receive the claim from Kemp of the 56 change orders, a second review of all the change orders that they had listed down was done. I performed that second review looking at all different things. Another third review was also done as well on the change orders, and the result pretty much was the same thing. There was no change in scope and no change in determination from the city side. The way I'd like to break up the change orders is that in the change orders, 12 of the change orders came from Nil Electric, which is their electrical subcontractor. And all of their change orders that totaled up $173,380.98 came after January of this year. So they came well beyond the ending date of the project. In addition, most of the costs that they were requesting...
Alan, why do you think that is, from your perspective?
Typically, I would think that when the contractors start looking over things, they'll sit and say, oh, we should have claimed this, we should have claimed that. But again, if we weren't notified to get it that late, I think that also gives them a second look at the plans and to take a look at their books and seeing what they think they are owed. But I'll let Kemp Brothers speak more to that than my
Right,
point
of course.
of view. Of what
I just wanted to hear what you're. Go ahead.
Again, of the no electric, a lot of their compensation they requested for was additional digging and chipping. Kemp had a demolition contractor on board, so we felt that they should have been the one picking up the cost. Unilateral change orders is another category that totals about $64,000. Unilateral change order, that's a dispute number because they actually originally asked for $182,000. The city paid $117,900. So the disputed amount was $64,000. What a unilateral change order can be, one, it could be the fact that we've made an agreement with the sub. Kemp on one of the items said that we don't want to sign it because of the fact that we want to implement a time impact delay associated with it. We unilaterally it because we want the sub to get paid. Another item might be the fact that they didn't have any proper backup to the numbers, or maybe the numbers were excessive in terms of how long it took to do something. If they couldn't provide that, the city went with its own numbers. Sometimes there's also another category, which is about $36,000, is what we call lack of coordination. And that could be like, for example, if they're pouring a floor and the elevator doors are in the area, depending on which came first, the leveling of the floor may have to be ground down again. It's additional work, we understand it, but if they were coordinated better together, that additional work was not done. The last item that we have of about $148,000 was really having to do with what we believe is in the contract itself. So when we pointed out, we were saying, here's where we believe the item is at, and obviously Kemp has another point of view. I did want to add that the total number that we have is $442,648.54. That's the claim that they have on change orders. When we did the mathematical adding, it only came up to $642,000, not $440,000. So we think it's a mathematical number. That's why we always refer to $422 instead of the $440,000, which is in their claim number. The last thing I want to bring up to the board is that this doesn't close out the contract. Con Ed cannot close out the contract. They need to wait for the final payroll submissions from Kemp Brothers. Typically, I would imagine that would be done once if they get a settlement through court or through whatever it might be. They would be paying off their subs, and at that point, then they could submit all their payroll information to Con Ed so they can finally close out the project. So that's still open, that they would be reviewing for labor violations, maybe contractor substitutions. So that still would be coming before the board as well. And at that point concludes the city's presentation of the claim.
Okay. Any questions before we move to hear the Kemp Brothers presentation, and then we'll have questions? Commissioner Davis.
Policy and procedure in terms of the items that they submitted that were past the time of limitations, those have been indicated in our response. You mentioned that some of the change orders came. Is there a time of limitations and when?
There is a time. The general specifications say that they have to notify the city within 20 days that there is a
change
impact.
order.
Yes. That they may not have the dollar value, but they're notifying us that there is impact.
So is that the common practice from other contractors for us, from prime contractors? We never get any change orders from prime contractors past 20 days.
We normally get them, but those are automatic. We point to the specification. We normally reject them and saying you're beyond the days. Again, sometimes, I mean, in this case, we're trying to work with the contractors. We do normally say, let's review them. But we do cite that we have the ability to reject it. But we normally will review it because we do want to cover what we feel is due to the contractor.
So we do try to work with them, even though we, as a practice, have 20 days, but we do try to usually work with prime contractors.
That's a good, yes.
When they have change orders to submit.
Correct. That's why even though the Kemp
establish that as a fact.
Yes, Neil Electric did come in, was 12 of them after the ending of the contract, but we did look at them. Some we said, again, we point out to them, we're rejecting it because of the fact that it was beyond the 20 days, but we believe some of the stuff that you're asking for is not in our contract. It means the scope didn't change. There is a demolition contract that Kemp had, and they should be covering the additional chipping and digging.
Yeah, I thought it was important that we establish that even though, in fact, you mentioned that it's a 20-day rule, that, in fact, we really do try to work with prime contractors around submission of change orders to the extent possible.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. And thank you, Alan. Before we go to Kemp Brothers, let me just mention in the interest of time and people's busy schedules. This hearing is going to take a little while. I don't see a reason to maintain the attendance of a representative from street lighting or from sanitation or from the Bureau of Street Services if the three of you would like to go on about your day, it's entirely up to you. You're welcome to stay for this very interesting process, or not. And as far as our representatives from engineering and contract administration, I think we are covered for engineering on this matter as well. And Mr. Smith, are you staying for this hearing? Okay. Then Frank, we're covered with Mr. Smith too, but you all are more directly applied, so if you want to stay, you're welcome to. I just also wanted to let you know that if you need to leave, you can be excused. So let's go to our Kemp Brothers representative, sir, in whichever order you would prefer.
We got the tall guys today. I saw the scheduler. He's bigger than me. My name is Mark Reddick. I'm with Kemp Brothers Construction. And I'm pleased to be here today, and thank you for having us. We called for this hearing. We're glad this hearing has transpired and has gotten us to here. I have,
sir, if I could, just to get a sense, what's your role at Kemp Brothers? What's your title or your
I'm
role?
Vice President of Kemp Brothers Construction.
Okay.
I work for the owner and principal chairman of the company.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. In anticipation of coming here today, part of me wants to say, you know Kemp Brothers. We've been working for you for a better part of almost 3 years, I think now. I can tell you more about Kemp, what we specialize in, how we got here, if that's of interest or if it matters. 120-year-old firm, 4 generations, controlled by 2 families. Primarily public works contractor, primarily communities, cities, all the different agencies in Southern California. So the kind of work that this is the kind of work that we do and have garnered a reputation for, and we're pleased to pursue this job when it came out to bid. Another part of Kemp's competency, which partly brings us here, is that through the years, probably in the last 15 years, Kemp has taken over and closed out surety claim projects, incomplete projects where a general contractor might go out of business, not able to pay his bills, fall on his face. There's a bond claim, surety comes along, has to settle up. Who do they pick? Who's competent? Kemp gets the call and we come in and finish jobs. So we have a pretty deep forensic reconstruction capability. And it's because of that, I think that's made us a better contractor over the last 15 years. We're not inclined to just walk away from your commonplace general contractor cram down offer. So, it's unfortunate because we worked very closely throughout the entire life of this project to deliver the best possible project for the city of LA. Last time I was in this room, I've been in this room twice. I was here when we got awarded the project, and I was here when this, almost the same panel, just lauded us with praise. It was the first time, that a contract had been brought before you to be lauded with praise, as I understood it. I'd like to take you all back to that time if it matters or if it's of interest to you, but there's a video, there's an audio recording because I listened to it. And it basically goes right down the line that Kemp has done everything possible to make this project a success. You had very kind things to say about us. Thank you. I have that audio if you want to hear it. It's about 3 minutes long, but it's just people saying, "You're wonderful." And you can imagine the irony that I suffer today as I stand here in front of you, having completed the project with a great team. He was here. He got lauded too. Joyce was here. Alan was here. They all together just, whew, man, this is great. Just about a year ago, it was September 16th, the day after the grand opening when 600 people went crazy with balloons and had a blast at the LAPD, that my team poured its soul into finish. And then, within about 30 days, the page changed over. I was like, who are these people? They're wonderful and professional people. I've worked very closely with Joyce and Alan and Deborah, accommodating in every possible way. Frank, you too. The truth is, it's been good. We can't seem to settle up on what is a a modest disparity. Really, we're at an impasse. We're arguing over $590,000 of extended general conditions that are a function of a change that kept us on the job working and costing us money and costing our subs money. That's what we're arguing about, $590,000 approximately. Then there's change orders, which are real material change orders. Hold on. Wood, wire, cable, conduit, ceilings, floors, tile, labor. Those improvements are in your building. We're not an investor in your building. We're a contractor who's delivering your building. So at direction, we were told to do these things. We did these things. Our subcontractors were hauled into various long and involved negotiating meetings, which okay. I have a decent smile. Anybody else ever have dental work? That's what these meetings are like. It's a drilling down, cramming down, jamming down process. Now it's civil, and it's pleasant, it's part of our business. But to have subcontractors leave us going, Mark, don't ever ask me to come help you again. That's not in the city's interest. It's not in our interest as a contractor. We're the ones that got lauded for doing the work. And like I say, just about a month after the thank yous came the, okay, now time to settle up. Oh, yeah, we're going to have a third party. Where's the schedule that we've been working with throughout the job? He's not available. Well, where is he? Is he part-time? What's his name? I think it's Ryan. He's been working. He's tight with our scheduler. They talk schedule talk. You ever hear schedulers talk? All those lines you saw on that board? They're like, it's a language no one can understand. Fragnets and stuff. But if you're in the job, on the job, working the job, you see the delays. You understand what transpired. And that guy was present for a long time till we needed him to settle up. And then, where's this guy Ryan? It's in the notes in your letter somewhere. If I could take you to a number in here where it says, I'm asking questions of Alan. Alan, it's getting kind of long. It's been December now. We're in December. We're still not settling up. Where is this guy? Part-time. Reassigned other project. I have a question, if I may ask it. I know I'm here to present, but I do have a question. Jason, very able man, just stood here and gave you all the schedule talk. The kind of guy we're going to face in litigation when we get there. But I don't know that we have to get there, but that's the kind of guy. And we're going to have our Jason. Jason, when did you get involved with this? Hold on now.
So, sir, excuse me, you're going to push my patience.
I'm sorry.
Because we haven't gotten to substance yet.
Okay.
And the benefit would be for you to present to the board as you unusually have requested to do.
Okay.
I've been here 4 years. In my 5th year, this is the first such hearing that we've had.
Oh, really?
Yes. So
thank you.
what normally happens is we have an instance where the parties are able to reach at least a proposal for the board to approve. That didn't happen here. Rather, your side exercised the provision in the contract that does allow for an appeal, in essence, to the Board of Public Works. So that's what you triggered, and so you're here on that. But you can present to the board rather than turning around and picking somebody out in the audience and deciding you want to put them on the stand. That's not what our hearing is going to be about. So go ahead.
I apologize. This isn't what I normally do.
And Commissioner Davis has a question.
I want to establish a fact. I understand the whole drift here. Certainly, you're at a hearing, and just as in many hearings, we come not with any predetermined idea about anything. So I want to clear the record on that, so that when you come before this board, we objectively review the facts as they are presented. So you need to know that. The second thing is, in terms of ID, you mentioned that you've been working for 3 years. Has Kemp worked for the city only 3 years?
This is our first job ever with the city of LA.
This is your first job ever. Kemp has never ever worked for the city of Los Angeles ever in the past.
120 years, never worked with the city of LA. First job ever.
Okay. All right.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Again, I apologize if I push the limits there at all. So basically, as my notes have it, and you saw much of it today, we're at an impasse. And it's dollars and cents. It's just under $1 million. We believe we're entitled to some $569,000 of extended general conditions because of change order delays that occurred at the project. And we believe we're entitled to $422,000 in change orders. Those are subcontractor bills to us saying, hey, you owe us for this. And we turn to the city and say, city, you owe us for this. And we can't come to terms over that. Now, my experience has been, people solve problems. You're people. I've tried to solve problems with these people. They've been great. And I have great respect for them. But we haven't been able to get quite there. And I don't know why. And they've asked me, can't we get there? And I'm saying, we're trying to get there, but we haven't been able to. So if I can really cut to the chase and not get into all the other stuff that has to do with working for the city of LA and doing the best possible job a committed contractor can do on behalf of LAPD, I can say that's where we're at. We're at those two numbers, $992,000.
And that's what you see, sir, just so I can, and let me give you a little bit of background here.
Okay.
I see this, and Mr. Jordan can step in on any of these, any of my comments if you would like, as our city attorney. I see this a bit as, in my profession, as a bit of an attempt at a mediation. As opposed to an arbitration. Although, if we have success today, we can, maybe we get to a number that's agreeable, maybe we don't. But I've been a lawyer since 1988 in Los Angeles. I've handled hundreds of mediations as an advocate for one side or the other, not as a mediator. Although in the last 4 years, I certainly feel like we've sat as mediators in many different capacities, including agenda number 4, which you saw that we called just before you, when the parties left with an agreement. I mention that because what I would like to do, I've got some questions for the Bureau, and I have some questions for your side. You've referenced, and so I'd like to get into some of that. So you referenced $992,000, roughly.
Go ahead.
So just so I'm clear, is that the difference that Kemp Brothers sees between what the Bureau of the Bureau of Engineering has essentially put on the table versus what your $1.8 million claim?
Yeah, that is correct. I see in their write-up that they're asking you to authorize or confirm on behalf of Kemp the extended general conditions or the compensable delays that they have been able to justify, the $791,000. Great. That's part and parcel of what we're asking for. In total, that represents 193 days of delay. We seek an additional 139 days of delay. So I look at this, I'm saying, God, we got a $40 million project and we got about $1 million difference. And it's an impasse, and we can't seem to get beyond it. And
well, can't we break down that $1 million even more?
Less.
So you talked about the $590,000 difference plus the change orders.
Yeah, and what it really is, in my math anyway, I've come up with $569,900. If it will help anyone here, I have kind of a summary. Can I hand it to you?
Sure.
And hold on. There it is. And this was a summary I actually prepared for mine. But I left this as well. And the reason I do it is this kind of gives context to the project. I know you're all very familiar with the project and all the things, but unusual project. And I tried to just kind of break it into the facts and figures. And if we get a chance, or
you might hand one to Deborah.
Oh, you know, in reading through in excess of 300 pages, it seemed, of today's agenda item and all the backup items, it's all good, and I don't take issue with. Go ahead.
I say I've got them, but go ahead.
Take issue. I don't take issue with much of it, but it is still kind of a summary, because what gets lost is some of the context. And we can talk about a couple of those items, but back to that summary page, just for background. You know the project. You know it was a long and involved project. You know it had a lot of design issues. You go down this list and you see the numbers like, holy cow. But today we sit at a $38,800,000 project. It sounds like this city wants to add $791,000 to that to accommodate us for extended general conditions. Like I say, our impasse are these two items in yellow, the 569 and the 422, and they total that blue number. All in all, that brings this project for a spectacular LAPD project to $40,600,000. If I got every dime of that today, and I'm told I must, the overall project would be about 17.3% over anticipation. Now, there's a contingency portion of that. It's really only about 5% more than the contingency when this thing was planned 5 years ago, and no one could have anticipated the number of changes that we underwent and endeavored to resolve. So, you know, my attitude as a Kemp representative, we're proud to have gotten involved with this project. We're proud to have worked hard on this project. We're proud to have completed this project and delivered this project for the people of Los Angeles. But we're not investors in public buildings for the people of Los Angeles. We help keep down costs. If I take issue with something in the agenda today, there's reference in there to a holdback or something for HVAC, okay?
The 200,000 roughly.
Yeah. Kemp's been working on that HVAC problem. How many meetings have we had together? Pardon me. How many meetings have we had? I mean, I have a 2-page meeting notes from June 21 where we basically ordered the new HVAC units. It's a warranty item. You guys have been in the building, occupying the space substantially. There have been no complaints for HVAC issues. You know, without getting all the details, you got a spec that says you got to meet 10,000 blow on your hand in a cone, okay? It's only meeting 7,800 or 8,900. It depends where you go and on what time of the day. Okay, we'll get it to 10,000. We go up, we work on these. It's a warranty. It's a service maintenance issue. Good companies, Train. Now we have another major national company. We're getting it resolved. This is on our nickel. Kemp has said, we owe it to you, we'll give it to you. Never want a dime more than we believe we're entitled to and can demonstrate, you know, in any court setting, and particularly this one, this is what we believe we're entitled to. Our subcontractors are owed it. They're looking to us for it. We're their protector. You're the city's protector. We have to work with each other to resolve this matter. But still at $1 million. Doesn't seem like a lot in the scheme of things, everything we've been through, but.
So let me, if you might, sir, let me talk to, I've got a couple of questions on, let's start carving this apart. You've got 139 compensable delay days at $4,100 each. That's the $569,900, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so what I'd like to hear is, let's deal with that amount first, because after I hear from you on it, I'm going to go to the Bureau of Engineering and hear what their position is on it. It's because what's your, you say they're compensable delay days, but they're not days that have been offered by the Bureau of Engineering. So your position that they are compensable is what?
Is you took occupancy, you know, you're in the building.
That would be October 26th?
Thereabouts, yes. And we're basically pulling off the job, okay? Not entirely at that point, but I believe your beneficial occupancy was September 15th. But yes, substantial completion was October 26th. But that said, for about the month of October, we're there still in full blow, okay? And then we begin to back off the site, but we're handling change order items that we shouldn't be handling. They were projected to be completed in August, but then there's a redesign of an electrical pedestal. Some representative of the city of LA says, we can't take this building. This is all wrong. You got jimmied electrical here. Well, we just followed the plan. Well, you can't do that. So that drove the project another four and a half, almost 5 months. Quite frankly, I end this thing February 28th. It really didn't finish till about March 15th. I think my schedulers, who are of the same competency, I believe, as the fellow that spoke here earlier, they say I'm entitled to 179 days. I don't want 179 days. We drove down, we pulled out, we weren't there in full scale. Just give me the days I'm entitled to, 139 days. It's easy, round number, takes me the end of February. So I'm not negotiating, I'm not discounting, I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, I only want what I'm entitled to. As far as I'm concerned, you get me to February 28th, life's good. Okay? So that is my $569,000. And I'll share one more thing. My boss is sitting behind me. He's going to absolutely roast me. There was a time in the negotiations, January, February maybe, where I actually said, we're getting so close. I think I can reduce my $4,100 a day rate, which was negotiated a year previously. I'm off the site. This is coming down to half that, $2,050 a day for the 4 months, November, December, January, February. Do that math, add that up. Takes a quick, couple hundred, it cuts this number down significantly. It takes it to 375.50 instead of 569. Just because we're trying to get it done, we're trying to get it closed. I'm trying to get my subcontractors paid. If I can take you for just one more second, because this is important, down to the very bottom. Take a look at second to the very bottom. You got a $1.9 million of Kemp's money sitting in retention. That's okay. We'll wait for our money. We got money. We'll wait for our money. It's been sitting there all this time. A lot of that subcontractor money, they can't figure out why they're having to wait to get it. They got their bills to pay. I can't pay them. A lot of them we've gone ahead and paid and just said, oh, we'll get it sooner or later, just to keep them in business. I'm not trying to whine here. I'm trying to share with you. You hold $1.9 million of our money. In addition to that, there's this $1.7 million of money we think we're entitled to and have spent. So, yeah, there's $3.6 million out there that I'm waiting to collect. And I'm trying to meet with Deborah, and I'm working with Alan and Joyce, and we're doing everything we can to help. But you got a bunch of my money. I'd like to get some of it. Be great. Looks like I'm on my way with the 791. That's a piece of it. And then down at the bottom, and this is more of a morale thing. You all right remember, I think one of the reasons we got brought here and you lauded all the praise on us, and I don't want to try your patience, is you might not remember, or maybe you've forgotten, but it seems like everybody else did, that in May of 2016, the city couldn't pay our pay applications. Do any of you guys know that? We turned in pay applications, we couldn't get paid. What's going on? This is the first time of all the months that how come we're not getting paid? Small issue. Do you remember the issue? Anyway, it comes down to this. Kemp funded $6 million of city-owed money to the world because you couldn't pay your bills, because you hadn't moved monies from contract vendor account A to contract vendor account B. The subcontractors are screaming for dollars. And we're okay, yeah, city's good for it. Hey, the city's good for it. We're writing checks. And the fact that we financed $6 million of your LAPD, and some of it's now been paid back. Obviously, you did the reappropriation of funds and the reallocation, and a lot of that's come back. It's kind of like that was forgotten. It's kind of like, oh, all the contractors do that. They all come out of their own pocket to move the city's purpose forward. They don't. Kemp did. Anybody remember that? Anybody? So, I really come here and I was torn. I'm so excited to be working with the city of LA to do a great job, to have something we're proud of, and I'm torn.
Thank you, sir. So let's, Commissioner Penning?
Sir, I just wanted to say I actually have a scheduling conflict. I have a couple of very time-sensitive meetings to get to. I unfortunately was not aware that we were going into this today. But I do wanted to say before I leave, and I've spoken to our president about my feelings, and I think, I appreciate that you all are here. I appreciate that you've been part of the process. I hear that you're very passionate, and that your company really felt very invested in helping the city get this project done. And I just want to say that we do appreciate your partnership on this project, that it did get done in time. in a way that the project could be put to use. And so I hope that, and I am confident that my colleagues on the board will be able to work through this today to come to hopefully a conclusion. I think no one wants to end up in court on this. Thank you.
I appreciate those comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Penning. So, thank you, sir. Let me, Alan, let's start with you on a couple of questions I have.
Actually, President James, I have
Oh,
a question.
for
Mr. Reddick.
okay. Yeah, 1 moment, sir.
Mr. Reddick,
Commissioner
thank you.
Cinta.
Thank you, President James. Mr. Reddick, thank you for your presentation today and your recap of the last couple of years. As I noted, this is your first contract. You've been on the project for 3 years. This is your first job with the City of Los Angeles.
That's correct.
So therefore, the processes of administrative processes, working with our city, with our bureau, are first time. This is the first time you've done that.
That is correct.
Okay. Couple of questions. The second question I have is that your staff, your company, you've been doing business a long time. You're aware that submittals should be complete with all documentation and verified. So when you request something, it is supported with administrative data that makes it very, very clear. Submittals, your submittals, whether they be for change orders or the TIAs, all that would be submitted with supporting documentation. Yes?
Yes.
Great. Okay. Then I think the only statement that I want to make is that, per the contract and per the process of our bureau, and again, in looking at our bureau and the amount of projects that we manage throughout the city, that these administrative processes of building and of contracts and subject to the terms in our general conditions, those are things that we rely on to be fair to the contractors. And I think all that we've, in the briefing and in the review, because I've had to review this as a liaison to engineering, is to understand that our bureau was fair and equitable as we've dealt with you in terms of the request for information, putting conditions on you that we would not change for any other contractor, that they would be standard, and that we would expect timely responses on corrections on submittals. Those are the things I want to share with you in terms of my analysis. We're almost there. We have a punch list that has a variety of things, and if you've gotten the project to where it's at, we're not completely there. So I'm happy that we're talking about this. For me, it's the detail. So I'm looking at the issues of whether you submitted information back within the time frames and all that to understand, are you a contractor that we're not asking you to invest? That's obviously not the thing. There is the amount of cost that you have to carry that's commensurate to working on a Los Angeles City contract. And I do have a question for our bureau at some point in time. But Mr. Reddick, I just want to tell you that wanted to thank you for getting the project to where it's at. We're not quite there, from what I understand, the punch list and a little bit of the work. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Cinto. Mr. Kawaguchi or Ms. Weintraub, Deborah, I would like to speak to the Bureau of Engineering. You can decide who. Maybe it just depends on what my question is. Thank you, Mr. Reddick.
Thank you.
The first thing I would like to address is Mr. Reddick's comment that they, in essence, fronted millions of dollars for us because we couldn't get sounds like our accounting in order. Referencing May 2016. Alan, do you know what, can you refresh my recollection on that?
Yes, we did talk to our accounting. Some of those payments weren't made because their insurance and stuff weren't current, and that's what we're waiting for them to submit all that information.
Whose insurance wasn't current?
Camps Brothers. They have, I think, a year that they have to do everything, and some of them expire, and they're notifying them saying this has to be turned in. That's what we're waiting for, all those confirmations. And once that's done, then those payments are processed.
And that's standard city.
That's on every single project. We do it to consultants. We do it to everything. All the paperwork has to be present and up to date. If it's not, then the payment isn't processed. That's usually caught by our accounting people in accounting division department.
So it wasn't a sense of we didn't have money in our account to be able to pay our contractor, or
no. Typically, if the board, the way we do all of our construction projects, when you award a project, all that money is placed into an account already ahead of time. That's why we come to you and we say this amount. That's why the fund and the accounts have to all be identified for you. It's because the county department is saying we're certifying the money's there. We're not giving you the point of we're going to get the money. It's there. And that's a requirement that we have on every single project, even consultant contracts. That money has to be in place on day one.
And so the reason that that's not, and then in this instance, the reason it wasn't forwarded out was because we needed additional insurance information.
It either expired or they needed updating of that information, and so that's the information that goes back and forth.
And once that happened, the
Then
money
payments
was
will then
paid?
be processed.
Okay. Commissioner Davis asks, how long did that take? And I'm not done yet with my examination, sir.
How long
so-
did the insurance process take?
I have to ask the county. I wasn't involved in that part of it, how long all that part took. I mean, at that point, I know Con Ed submits the payments, goes on to accounting, they hold it, and it's back and
Don't
forth.
they have insurance before we start doing business?
That's correct. They may have it, and let's say the insurance policy is, right now, if we award a contract, let's say, has insurance all the way to, let's say, May of 2017. Okay, at that point, firms will normally renew it, or sometimes they didn't tell us that the insurance has been renewed, so they have to get that back into us. At our point, from the city standpoint, it is expired, so please get it up to date, and we'll continue the payments.
I know most insurance companies will renew it within 24 hours.
It's usually a back and forth of what do you
then-
need, and they
then
sometimes may
my
not
insurance
understand
company here at the
to
city-
notify us.
My insurance company here at the city, State Farm, they will even fax it to the city when I ask for it that day. So then my question is...
I was still trying to ask questions, Commissioner
Yeah,
Davis,
okay.
but if you would
Well,
like
go
to...
ahead. I would like to get to questions. I would.
You had one more question on this? Go ahead and finish
No,
that.
I'm finished right now.
All right. So, Alan, back to where I was. So, that's the explanation on the May of 2016 money that
That's what I recall. I remember they brought that to us, and that's when we had gone back and started checking, because again, we don't keep following up on every single payment. So like I said, that's what I recall happened.
All right. Getting to the compensable delay days and the non-compensable delay days. The Bureau of Engineering has put on the table roughly $791,000 in delay day payments. Is that right?
That's correct. It covers 193 days. It takes the contract up to September 22nd, I believe, or 21st.
Okay. What is the significance of that date? Why is that date the end date for the date that the city is willing to pay for delay days?
When we, make the analysis, we look at what was done, and our scheduler looks at it. He says, this is how many days were allocated this for. If it's the mechanical shaft, so many days were delayed. That's what we do. And when it does, it pushes out the schedule, and he shows, he says, this is the end date. The more significant date is October 26th, and that's when Camp requests for a final inspection. Okay, and that's when Con Ed comes out. That's when they believe substantial completion of all the work is done. Even though our 193 days takes us to roughly September 21st, the days between September 21st and to October 26th, we're saying we're allowing for compensable delay, meaning that you're out there, we understand, but you're doing contract work too, so it's going to be at $0. And that takes us to the 26th. Going all the way out to the 28th of February doesn't make sense to me, because at that point they're being paid for, I'm not even sure what they're being paid for. The overhead rate says that they're being paid that money for their trailers, for their staff, for utilities out at the site. They've already vacated the site. Okay, and when you look at the date of they're pointing to a pedestal pump installation. Neil Electric, their sub, opted to put the pump in at their discretion. Everything was cleared. They had opted to put it in. It's like, I'm not going to get back out there. I got a lot of other jobs to do. And in fact, their last day on the site for that work was completed on February 11th, because we noted that down. Because I said, what day did they finish? I had our inspectors and everyone out there. That ended as far as that date. But again, we looked at that being to the point where we'd say we can assume a compensable delay, because again, your AC units, which they fill are warranty items, which we don't believe is warranty, because of the fact that if the city specs out 10,000 CFM, you better give me 10,000 CFM.
You're
not
talking about the air
8,000.
conditioner.
That's correct. Not 7,000, not 8,000. We request 10,000. That's what you bid on. Okay, and that's what they said. They've been working on it. In fact, they were notified back in July of 2016 that the units were not performing. Okay, they went out and did several tests in December, and then we said, you know what, let's bring on another third party to agree to this third party. They came out, they ran a bunch of tests. They said, here's where you're deficient. Okay, at that point, we didn't hear anything from them. They said, we'll replace the units. It wasn't until maybe June or so that they said, you know what, we will come and repair the units. We're going to put them on order. They had a sub come out. They did some measurements. They did some external duct work. But as of today, they still aren't completed. The units, and they say that we've been using them. The units have gone down twice. Okay, we had to bring out our people. I had to pay out a subcontractor that we had to bring out in order to get them back up and running. And this summer, we had some really hot, humid weather because, again, we felt that LAPD running their classrooms, they need to have that system up and running very quickly. And we had to do that.
Have we in the past, I know every case is different, and I say that a lot, but once they vacate the project, what would be the circumstances beyond the time that a contractor vacates a project off the premises, et cetera, that we would pay delay days beyond that?
Typically, again, okay, you're talking two different things, not two different things. One of them will establish an end date. To me, when Con Ed comes out and they inspect it, that stops the clock as far as I'm concerned. So now in all my other contracts that I've had to deal with contractor, we're normally debating as to who owns those days. Does the city own them? Does the contractor own it? Is it 50-50, 60-40? So again, for me, the crucial date is October 26th. And we're saying we're going to, the city is paying for 193 of that delay. 35 of it we're saying is compensable. I mean, non-compensable, so we're going to be...
So that's a zero out.
It's a $0. I don't disagree that Camp was doing work out there, but they're doing punch list items. Some of those punch list items can take 30, 40, 60 days. And in this case with the AC units, they still haven't. In fact, they still haven't completed all the punch list items that are on the project. They're not complete, and that's something that we've been waiting for. We've been asking to complete it. They have not come out and completed it.
So at the $4,100 a day, I would be curious what the it's basically 35 more days from September 21 to October 26th. It's about 35 days.
Yeah, it is 35 days. If I was going to say, you want me to calculate it for you?
Yeah, no, it's 35 days. But
It is 35 days.
4,100 is basically 4,000, so it's $140,000. It's 140,000 and change. Okay. Next question on the change orders. And am I clear that from the 791,000 that the Bureau has offered, is recommending that we pay for those days that you just described, the difference between that and the full claim that, as you understand it, that Kemp brings to us today is this $922,000 that is the compensable days that Mr. Reddick described, plus the change order amount of the $422,000?
Yeah, I think it's a simple mathematical number. He's looking at the 791, subtracts his 1.3 million that he needs, so it's just that delta.
Okay.
Change order, same thing.
So I'm clear on that. Let's talk about the change orders for a moment. Let me find my change order sheet. I will eventually get there.
It's towards the end, I think.
Okay, here it is. So the 422 is the disputed value. There's 540,000 in change orders, and then the 117,000 that the city has agreed to on the unilateral change orders. I know that this was in your presentation, Alan, but let's talk about the Neil Electric subcontractor change order. I want to talk about each one of these because I know where I am on the delay days right now, although I have a question for your consultant. But let's go to Neil Electric on the change order. So what's the Kemp Brothers request is $173,000. The city's estimate is $0. The reason for that is that it was submitted over a year late?
It was
or is that part of the reason?
That is part of the reason.
What's the other reason?
The other reason that we had is that a lot of their items that they requested are for additional chipping and digging of their conduit work. To be honest, I believe they may be owed that money, but again, it shouldn't be the city because, again, Kemp has a demolition contractor. Neil Electric has stated straight in their contract, we don't do chipping and digging. But again...
So the city shouldn't have to pay for that, your position?
That's correct. It should have been something that the Kemp internally had to coordinate themselves. Is Kemp saying, did I put the money out? I mean, I think they also went back and looked at it because, again, to get the work that they're pointing to, a lot of it is 14 to 18 months later. So is that just something of them looking in their books and saying, gee, we're owed more money? Typically, when a contractor feels they're owed money, we normally get a notice saying, here's a change order request for additional compensation.
The next issue, let's get to the unilateral change orders. That's the Kemp Brothers request is 182. The city's saying there's that we'll do 117 on that. There's a difference of 64. What represents the difference?
Those are typically items where we're saying is that give us the backup information if you're saying it took us so many hours to do it because you haven't provided that. If they can't provide that information to us, at that point we're going to go with our estimator. If he says it takes 10 hours, so many people to do it, if they can't give any backup to it, then that's what we're going to pay for it. Same thing with discussions of, gee, it took you, 2 days to paint the room. We don't think that takes that long. We takes this. Well, this is what we want claimed. At that point, the city will unilateral that number, and like I said, that's what I think their Kemp is coming back and disputing.
On the lack of subcontractor coordination, would you elaborate on that? And what's the source of the change order there that the city doesn't want to pay?
Again, it would be typically, another example, I guess, that may be easier to understand sometime would be, let's say as plans call out for electrical outlets to be placed every 2 feet all against the wall. The electrical sub comes out, places the outlets every 2 feet. Counter and out comes in. Counter comes in, goes around the same wall. He has legs that have to come and brace onto the wall. Unfortunately, 3 of the outlets of the maybe 10 that are there have to be moved because they're right in the way. Electrician comes back out and he says, well, I have to do the work. I have to move them over. So you owe me money. He's bringing that up. We would say as well, that wasn't coordinated. We told you that there's a counter. Here's where the irons go. You guys need to coordinate that together. That poor coordination isn't the city's issue.
The contract work of $148,000, 149 basically.
We're seeing that the items we can point to the areas in the specifications.
I recognize that the description is your argument, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. We look at that. We look at the scope. We look at the plans. We look at the specifications. We identify and say that work is already part of the contract. I can understand sometimes where the subs haven't seen that section. I had an example one time or an item where the subcontractor said, well, my demolition doesn't count these footings because it wasn't on the demolition sheet. Our point was, you see this other sheet that shows this? Shows it says demo footings. You're responsible for it. And the sub item might be as well. I didn't bid it that way, so we need to get compensated for it. Again, it's not the city's, no scope change. That's why we deny it.
Were any of these change orders that are the subject of today's hearing submitted within the 20 days?
I don't know. I'd have to go look back in my log of
well,
56.
Let me rephrase the question. Would any of the disputed, I recognize that some of them the city's paying, the 117K.
Right.
So are any of the, after your consultant comes up, maybe you could look and see if any of the disputed amounts, not the 117, but the disputed amounts, were any of those submitted within the 20 days?
Okay, we can take a look at that. All right.
And then I have a question for your consultant, then we'll go to Commissioner Davis. Sir, go ahead. I'm sorry, Mr. Noble, is it? Nolte, okay. So, what, you were brought in to provide, as you described, a forensic analysis. And we went through your slide presentation that was encapsulated within the bureaus. Could you give us the Cliff Notes version, a simple summary based upon your review of this that's gotten us here today? What's your simple description of what happened here and why we're here today?
It's a good question. I think I would summarize it as follows.
Let me make it easier. I know that we're here today because the parties can't agree. So the better and Mr. Reddick made the point fairly well that it's a pretty large budget project, and we're down to this last $900,000 that we're trying to resolve. So I got that. But so recognizing that that's why we're not here, your summary on what you think happened here.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. I would summarize the reason for us being here today as follows. One, I believe there were delays and impacts to the project. Two, I believe many of those delays arise out of the city's changes to the project, either scope or the design. We don't have much of a debate. I offered in one of my opening slides regarding this substantial completion date of October 26, 2016. There is a debate as to whether additional work occurred after that, but that milestone to me is not in debate. It is a measurable milestone, a conclusion of the contract or the scope of the project. Having said that, I think the reason then we're here today is that there's a difference or a disagreement between the two analyses that have been done, one on behalf of the contractor, the other obviously on behalf of the city or the city's agent. I've independently reviewed both. The results of the contractor's analysis do not make sense to me in that their modeled approach or attempt to communicate the delays are either fundamentally flawed. They include assumptions that didn't come to be. They include mathematical or administrative inaccuracies, i.e. the narrative asks for a number of days and the support does not come to the same conclusion. And those were the types of responses the city gave contemporaneously, which, as I presented, I think gave rise to the city's independent analysis, which I've also reviewed, which includes the same issues. We're still talking and agreeing on the same entitlement issues regarding the underground utilities, mechanical shaft, and the fire pump issue. It's the same issues. We don't disagree on that. We disagree on what the impact is. And as I reviewed the city's summary and analysis of those items, I looked obviously at the technical approach, which again I largely agree with in my duration in reviewing those analyses. But as I presented in conclusion or near conclusion, I also aligned the models or the assumptions in those analyses with reality, and not the day for day, but the very close correlation with these design impacts or scope changes to the as-built or actual performance of the work gave me a bit of a belt and suspenders comfort that those analyses technically were correct and the results generally aligned with reality. So to come back to your simple question, sir, I think it is two technical approaches that give very different results. But perhaps if I could offer, if we all pull ourselves out of the differences at that level and look a little bit more strategically at, we agree on substantial completion. The city agrees most of those impacts are its own or are concurrent to the contractors. Simple things like admissions that there was a demobilization. There would likely be, and I testify as an expert, I'm before a couple of attorneys here, a burden put upon the contractor to prove its actual costs during that period of alleged extension. I'm getting some head nods. Would be near or at the $4,100 contractual rate. And again, nobody here wants to go to a court of law or an arbitration, but I think that burden would be difficult for the contractor. I don't know if it was an offer. I think coming to some reasonable explanation, I still haven't heard why substantial completion is not substantial completion. That's in the contractor's schedules, but here today they're saying they want compensation out through March. Those kind of fundamental things I think are causing a lot of chatter and causing the groups not to be able to come together. But it really is not taking a look at, I think, at the big picture and some pretty simple facts.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, Commissioner Davis, I'm done. Do you want to speak with Mr. Kawaguchi? Okay, Mr. Kawaguchi, and then we'll go to Commissioner Sinto.
Kawaguchi?
Yes, sir.
The issue here, I think everybody else has done a lot of quantitative inquiry. I want to do some qualitative ones. The issue about unavailable staff was mentioned in terms of the prime contractor's testimony. Do you know what they mean when they say we had staff that were unavailable?
One of the items that they're talking about the schedule that we have from Turner, and what they were asking for is a meeting with our scheduler to go over the TIAs and why they're being rejected and whatnot. And my comment, a lot of it had been, is that I'm not going to help you build a claim against the city. That is something, it's spelled out to you in the letters. And so on one of the occasions where they felt the schedule was going to be there, the schedule didn't come because I told them, I said, no, they have the letter. It's pretty clear to us as to what needs to be in there. A lot of their schedules still did not build off of those items that we had listed in there. I had asked this third party to look at some of the comments that were made. Are they unusual? Are they to the point where a scheduler couldn't understand? I mean, why wouldn't they comply to them? And I believe his answer was they should have been able to, the items that were commented in the letters.
In terms of this issue of chipping and digging, is that something that was required or necessary to complete the job?
I'm assuming, at this point, yes. I'm thinking if there's rocks in the ground and they have to chip and dig, the electrical is doing it. But again, my comment had been is that their demolition contractor, the way they've tailored their contracts, should have been the one coming in, trenching, digging all that out. Then the electrical would just lay their conduit in.
So the electrical should have been accountable for the cost of the chipping and digging, is what you're saying?
Well, are they accountable? No, their contract, we saw their contract. It says right in there that they are not responsible for chipping and digging. So when
Who
they put in
been responsible for that?
they put the claim into Kemp Brothers. Kemp sends it on to us, and our point is that you have a demolition contract.
In past practices, have we been able to accommodate chipping and dipping as an item in the past in other contracts, or is that something that is not normal?
That's normal. I mean, typically when we tell a person to lay in a line and we tell them lay in 10 lines from point A to point B, when that electrical sub or contractor gives us a value, it assumes it's all the work that's in there. They wouldn't say, well, that's just the conduit, that's just to lay this. It's a complete piece of job. Just to let you know, we did look at the change of the 56. Only one of them was submitted within the 20 days. All the rest came in well after.
Okay, in terms of delays and changes, some of the delays and changes, we did require some delays and changes and actions that we made from the Bureau. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's how we got to the 193 days.
That obviously had some impact upon the project.
And we acknowledged it. That's why I said we're willing to pay that amount. This was something that we offered to Kemp back in January.
In the process of our communicating or lack of communicating with the prime they are the prime contractor, right?
They are the prime.
In the relationship of communication with them, there were times when subcontractors weren't paid for long periods of time. We were aware of that, right?
I am not aware of that issue if they're not being paid.
According to the testimony they had in terms of their communication with us from the Bureau, there were times in which subcontractors were not paid because we weren't able to come to some kind of understanding based upon our contractual agreement. For me, at all, whenever possible, certainly we want to be sensitive to that, and I don't really have to tell you because you are a Board of Engineering professionals. But you do need to know that I reinforce that value, that we certainly need to communicate. Is this a Prop Q project?
This is a Prop Q project, yes.
Is this the only prime contractor that we've had a problem with from Prop Q?
In terms of payment on them?
In terms of this kind of situation?
Yes. Because like I said, bonds have the money already up front, and we normally put it into the accounts just as the
But
requires.
this is the only prime contractor that we've had a problem with on Prop Q, right?
I can't speak to that point. I mean, there might be others that insurance.
I've been here since, what was it, 2013? I don't remember any other Prop Q contractor coming here. Maybe you did have some.
I'm just saying they could have. They weren't bringing it to our attention.
Almost a perfect attendance.
Okay.
Do you know?
I don't know. Like I said, it wasn't brought to our attention if they weren't being paid. I mean, they may, because of those issues, they would understand that we're not being paid because we don't have our insurance in, we don't have this in, verification, those items.
I appreciate and I support 1,000% your administrative effort to due diligence with our prime contractors. And on the other hand, I want to make sure that we do everything we can to communicate with this contractor as we have done with other contractors on Prop Q. We've not had a problem with any other contractor on Prop Q.
Not on
if I'm
payments,
wrong,
no.
correct me.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's not have a problem with this contractor on Prop Q.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jacinto. Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate the questioning, the due diligence that we're doing and trying to figure out how do we get to a resolution here. As I've gone through the briefings and studied this, again, and as the liaison to the Bureau of Engineering, I want to offer up two things to help us move forward. One is I am in support, obviously, with the recommendations, number one, of the 791,000 for the 193 additional calendar days. On item number 3, the recommendation to authorize the city to issue a deductive change order amount of $267,550, I am inclined to, in the spirit of resolution and working with the contractor, is to sort of absorb that cost internally and not to amend it to not issue a deductive change order and sort of absorb that cost internally. So that leaves us about at $1,058,000. From my seat, in terms of analysis of the change orders and the request, the $900,000, I'm at the point where I would feel comfortable with recommendations amounting to $1,058,850 for the time, additional calendar days, and the HVAC costs.
So let me tell you all a little bit about what's happening. This is while we do many hearings that seem like this is our first hearing where we actually just vote on something. And we can do that, but this is our first hearing that's a little bit different because this is, in essence, a settlement hearing. Mr. Rettig made 2 references to litigation and to court. And so whatever we do here, the only way to ensure that doesn't happen would be to get release language from both sides. And that requires me to do a couple of things. One, I would need to get word from Kemp, and I'm not even going out there yet with a proposal, but I would need to get word from Kemp that it's something that they would agree to based on the record today. The release language is something that I would want to go to the city attorney's office to bring back to the Board of Public Works with release language. And the other issue that I have is that in the meantime, we have lost 2 commissioners today due to city conflicts, and I would want them to, before we even vote on the full matter, I would want them to be briefed and to be familiar with what that final vote would entail. And then the other thing I would propose is that if we have something that Kemp Brothers would agree to, then what I'm about to say is irrelevant. But if we don't have something that Kemp Brothers would agree to, I would be interested in another session, albeit briefer, but in the sense that it would, I think if we put something on the table that Kemp Brothers wants to counter with, they could submit, I would give them time to submit documents to us to support what their counter would be. So that's what I'm thinking right now. And my thought, Commissioner Cento, since you put it on the table first on where you were, I'll tell you where I was to try and get this resolved. And then I'm going to yield to your suggestion, but I want to explain why I'm going to get to yours. I think that we ought to try and resolve this. I always think that we ought to try and resolve these matters without litigation. I've tried lots of cases in almost a quarter century, and I know how expensive litigation is. And I think we are close enough that we ought to try and avoid that here. And I also don't think I've heard anything today that leads me to believe that it's a complete impasse, but we'll find out. So because I would like to avoid litigation, I am willing to move the city beyond and it's just because I want to avoid the litigation here, even though I tend to agree with some of the points Mr. Nolte made on burdens in court, but my initial thought was, all right, we've agreed to pay the $791,000 and the $117 on the change order. I was inclined to go up $140,000 on the delay to pay up until August 26th. But at the end of the day, we're talking about dollars here. And Commissioner Cinto, you have put on the table a bit more money than that. You've put the $791,000 plus the HVAC, which gets you to $1,058,000. My recommendation would be at this point to ask Kemp if we could wrap this up for the $1,058,000 and accompanying releases. I also understand if you don't want to tell us today and you want to submit additional information, that's okay too, but I'm just trying to move the needle here. You may know how these mediations work.
I get it. I appreciate
we made the
effort.
first move.
I appreciate that effort to me. Thank you. May I ask, because we did submit their names in cards, and it's not going to be a long and involved thing, but there's a little bit of information that might help you.
Okay.
That would benefit you. It's the project manager, and it's our...
They have a speaker card in. I'm happy to hear from them.
I would appreciate... Nigel, would you come up here first and speak to the three issues that got your attention? And please be more brief than I was.
I'm Nigel Chalmers. I was the senior project manager for Kemp Brothers. Good morning, commissioners. I was here a year ago when we were brought in. And I would like to speak to questions you had for Alan Kawaguchi that pertain to that very reason we were brought in. The reason we were brought in here on that day of 9/16 was...
You're talking about May 2016?
September.
Is this the insurance issue?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
It would help in what you guys are considering here today. When Kemp Brothers was seeing the finish line of giving the LAPD the facility of a by then scheduled grand opening date with a lot that goes behind that in the planning outside of us just for the event itself. We encountered something that was a month already affecting us, cost impacting us, but we weren't aware of it because of fiscal cycles. But we realized in about May, and I might be wrong here or there, but May, and this is 2016, getting right to the end, that our payments were not coming through as timely as they had always been. So I, being the project manager, called Conrad and inquired with Gabe, my contact there, who'd always been helpful to me, and found out that there was an issue and he would get back to me. So one of the things that were affecting that pay period was indeed insurance, but we immediately jumped on it, and as you guys said, it took within a day it was uploaded. It was an issue with the carrier that it was immediate. So we didn't think anything of it because we know paperwork processes, it takes a while. But we got into the second month and concerned subcontractors who by now, trust me, were overburdened with change orders on this project individually, case by case. And they were also cash impacted, and we were each and every day going for various instances back to the well to tell them, hey, I need one more favor, I need a crew this weekend, I need overtime, I need whatever it takes to make this end date. And I assured them, along with my company owner, to keep the cash flow going. These guys cannot afford to finance it, so we have to do something here because I don't know what's going on with the city, but we're just not getting paid. We have all our boxes checked, and ultimately this non-payment lasted about 3 to 4 months, and it's all documented. And the very reason we were invited here was on your board, the reason why Alan Kawaguchi brought us here was for you guys to approve the reallocation of funds from one work order within the city to the other, where it was just, we have one contract, Kemp Brothers had one contract with the city, but you guys, for some reason, funding, what have you, had 2 work orders. So we got caught up in that, but there was nothing we could do, but I went to my company and asked my boss to continue to make these payments, to keep these subcontractors going at this vital time, to get to the finish, because of commitments that we had made and things that the LAPD had done in planning to
Isn't
organize.
that your responsibility as a prime?
What's that?
Is that that's not your responsibility
no,
as
sir.
a prime?
Never has been. No, not in that
So,
experience.
so would this, and I'm going to ask BOE the same question. Would this have happened had your insurance not lapsed even for a day?
No, that was just a whole separate circumstance that upon inquiry it came up and it was resolved in a day, a phone call. That insurance had
but wait a
nothing
minute,
to do
wait a
with
minute.
the money.
I understand it was resolved for you, but we are a government entity, and there's a reason that it's very important that even as a driver, something as simple as my car insurance, you don't want to let it lapse. So I understand that the insurance carrier, they'll solve it for you real quick because that way that's how they get their premiums. They're solving it for you. But if there's an interruption for us on the city side, and I'll talk to our Bureau of Engineering and find out, what does that do to our process? Because it's not the city's fault if your insurance lapsed even for a day, and even if you solved it within a day. That's not us. That's the prime. And I'll find out from the Bureau what that is. But go ahead.
But it was the city because funds had to be reallocated through your approval.
But I understand that. But okay, now, and the reason that relates to the $900,000 we're talking about today is?
No, I was just making sure we cleared that.
Yeah.
Because it came up in a question to Alan.
Okay,
and
because it's
the
a bit of a
response was
side
surprising
issue to me trying to settle this case.
It's something for you guys to consider of what Kemp has done with our first pass at working with the city, trying to be a successful contractor for the city and a continuance of that, because the effort was there. I personally invested 2.5 years in doing whatever it took to deliver this project as early as was possible.
Yeah. Okay. Mr. Kawaguchi, again, this side issue is not exciting me right now. But he's put it back on the table. Let me ask you a follow-up question. So we're back to this issue again that doesn't relate to the $900,000. And we're being told that it was, again, a city process that you had to come back to the board for a reallocation of funds, which we did in 2016. My question was the lapse in insurance what entirely caused that? The representative from Kemp said no. What was it? Did insurance one trigger it or not?
I'd have to check actually with accounting because I wasn't into that detail. I know that when I had checked back, they said they hadn't been paid. We did move money around. That had to do with the change orders and how they were being submitted. But like I said, I was told that it was an insurance issue, that this had lapsed. That's what stopped the payments in that process. Again, I'd have to check back in detail. And since they brought this up, they asked if we haven't been paid. We told.
Okay, let me ask it. With that, you have to go back to accounting. You've been here how many years, Alan?
30 years.
Okay.
30 plus.
So, if insurance isn't interrupted, does that happen?
No.
Okay, let me ask it that way. Okay, so again, I'm sorry, guys. I don't feel like we did you all a big favor, and that you invested money in the city because your insurance lapsed. And there are triggers that happen that, while may be simple for the insurance company to solve, it's a real alarm bell for a city government on a $20 million project that takes some time to solve. And the issue about who's responsible to pay the subs, Commissioner Davis points out to me that we are responsible to keep our payments to our contractors up to date and current. I agree completely with that, and I would commend one reason that this is, I think, such a unique issue, even though it's not related to the $900,000 we're trying to solve that you guys have put on the table, but is Dr. Campos has done a phenomenal job here at the Board of Public Works, working with our accounting department such that, and we keep metrics on our payments to our contractors, and our metrics are remarkable, stellar compared to what they were before this board was impaneled in 2013. And so there, but when you do something like insurance dies for even a day, there's a government process that has to take place that our accountants perhaps could understand. But once I hear Mr. Kawaguchi say that without that, none of that trigger has to happen, I don't feel like you guys are out there as investors in a city project because you bothered bidding on one. And I also don't think it's particularly helpful to us trying to settle this $900,000. So with that, is there another issue that you would like to put on the table that relates to the $900,000?
I would just like to address things that came up in your questioning to Mr. Kawaguchi.
Because remember, we moved first off of the 791. We put 200,000 plus more on the table that you didn't have when you walked in this morning. So keep that in mind. Go ahead.
On the comment that was made about timely submission of documents, when it comes to change orders, yes, we have followed the specifications where it requires you not to put together change packages complete with time and cost. But there are notifications that were, say if an RFI came in or a bulletin was pending, we had a certain number of days, I believe it might be 6 in this contract, to respond and put the owners on notice that there is a potential for cost and time. We've always done that, and we have all the records for that. Where we had issues were putting the packages together on a final cost, because to us, the city gave us basically one shot. When you come in for the negotiated meetings, it's a last and final. So our subs, you have to give them the latitude of trying to get an understanding of it, to cover it, to get these costs put together correctly. And if you look at the details that you guys have not seen, this job was a remodel where we lived in two worlds of what is defined on the contract documents, what did you guys bid to in fairness, and what is expectation. And a lot of it was change orders that came with 6 versions of a directive that when you look at it, it's like a bulletin 5.6. That 0.6 put us into a design build aspect where we are a lump sum contractor, but on this particular project, and with a lot of I would say partnership, for lack of a better word, with the LAPD on what they need at the very end as the end user, and the designers and the consultants who have to design that work in on the fly. It became a very elaborate effort. And with that goes the pricing effort of, yes, on paper it looks like we were delayed in submitting timely documents, but there's versions that came in on time, got changed, or were fruitless because the design changed again. Different criteria, different things came into play, and very late, and again, we're still trying to compress it all into the same time frame for earliest delivery, because we did have a personal connection with the LAPD and the officers there, and lived it while they were occupying the space, to know that this is important and important to the community, and Kemp did everything. Every time I went back with what to us is normally an obstacle for a build, it slows the process. We overcame it with decisions made as a company to fulfill and to get to an end. So it's really, if I can say so just personally, I'm a bit deflated to be here a year late and not come to a fair resolution for that effort. And the very last thing, just because the question was out there, if I could throw some light on it, is the digging aspect for Neil Electric. Now, Neil Electric, unfortunately, as a company, every key person that was tied to that project, from VP level on down to foreman, quit the company in the duration of our project for circumstances that we can't control. So a new team had to come in late, and they had to assess where their company was, and there was a late submission on documents, but we were all understanding of that, or aware of it. So chipping and digging, yes, there is some language in their subcontract that excludes it, and there is a demolition contractor, but when a lot of this late work came with new plan changes, life safety, implementation of new circuits, new home runs, new digging, new trenches all the way through the campus, our demolition contractor he's long gone. So yes, Neil has it excluded on paper, but we at our request, they did a lot of digging and chipping as change order work. It has no relevance to the fact if it's covered in a subcontract base or not, because it was how we executed change work and out of sequence work. And there are change orders issued for digging and chipping because there was a lot of unforeseen rock and boulder encountered where there were change orders issued for that very aspect to other trades earlier on. So I don't know if this is an issue of, here we are at the end, and other reasons, for other reasons, a lot of changes has become contentious or in dispute, but digging and chipping should not be. So it is change work, not base contract work. And I believe that's all I have, unless someone has a question.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Davis?
I wanted to, I think that we're making some progress here, but I mean, out of all fairness to everybody involved, in terms of accountability for insurance, the prime contractor is responsible for insurance. But also, we have accountability to make sure that people who are working for us are insured. Often, the accounting department, I guess, will call to find out where is your up-to-date insurance at some point in time. So I'm not saying we are responsible for prime contractors' insurance. We're not. But we are responsible to make sure that they are insured. So I just hope that we're able to continue to move forward in a way that we can resolve this problem. I have hope that we can, and I think that looking at both sides of the table, that we are moving in that direction.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis. Mr. Kawaguchi, in an attempt to try and persuade Kemp Brothers before I ask them more formally to give a serious condition to the $267,550 we put on the table to try and get this to go away, in addition to what the Bureau has offered. Is there a potential or possibility or provision that if we're unable to work this out, liquidated damages would be an argument the city would make?
Absolutely. Again, we still have to point out that the punch list items are not completed, and although Con Ed, as they do their final inspection that stops the clock, they have the right to restart it again. I think they can address that issue. I think in the board report we tell them if they can complete all the punch list items by September 8th, that we would give them compensable days, non-compensable days up to that point. After that, we would recommend that the board start assessing liquidated damages at $3,000 a day.
Okay. So thank you, sir. So here's what I would recommend based on what I've heard from my colleagues. We put this additional money on the table, so it's Mr. Riddick, Mr. Reddick, it's your move on whether you want to come back with something today or you want to submit something to us in several days from now that you want us to consider when we come back with some draft release language that I'll have at my ready. And recognizing this is a bit of an unusual process, but you all asked for it, so we're here.
And for us too, for me too.
Yeah. And by the way, I might just add, my guess is that if the unfortunate occurrence comes that we can't reach an agreement and this does go to litigation, we've opened up the settlement discussions. I mean, they're in a public hearing. Everybody knows what everybody's offers and everything were. But go ahead.
No, I appreciate that. I think it'd be prudent for both of us, practically. We're going to have to see release language before I can, do anything as a matter of
No doubt, of course.
So,
I would say that what I would say on the record is that we have a deal in principle, but there's still release language and things that have to be worked out. So we would not seek to bind you on that until we had, and we would take a vote with 5 members of the commission here.
I understand.
Go ahead.
And the part 2 of that, though, is I would need to regroup with my team here and the principal owner of my company and look at what you've proffered or offered, because you have, and then come back to you with something that we're prepared to sign on with. I mean,
that's fair.
We make progress in that respect. We get release language, you get something we're prepared to sign off on, and hopefully we all go away happy.
Yeah, and I think it's worth the effort. I want to let you know that I appreciate your time and effort on this for you and your representatives that are all here today. So what I think we ought to do is it's clear where we stand currently. Depending on what you propose, we might revise it.
Understand.
But it's clear where we stand currently. And so what I think we should do is, Mr. Jordan, just let me know that I'm staying in my lane here. I would like to, I'm just thinking of dates, what I would like to do is have another hearing on this 2 weeks from today, which is September, I can't do it, that's September the 8th. I would like to do it on September the 6th, if we could. Yeah, the Wednesday. The Wednesday is September the 6th. But we would request that you have whatever your proposal, and we'll ask BOE as well, whatever your proposal would be back to us, or thoughts, whatever you'd want to submit to us, by a week from today, which would be September 1.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think we have enough information on all this that we could put something together like that.
Ms. Weintraub?
Thank you, Commissioner. I do have a concern, as I have had since January when I started to participate in this discussion, that the air handling units are just not functioning. And as Alan has pointed out, we have had them fail twice, and we've also had to spend money to send a third-party reviewer. We're about to see 106 degrees potentially this weekend, though Kemp has told us they've ordered new units and that they had promised us a submission on it. We've seen no proof of either of those things happening. So I would like to proceed to get the air handling units replaced, which is a cost that was in our board report, and I'd like to know if we could proceed to do that, and that just needs to figure into the final settlement. I feel like I've waited since January to get that issue resolved.
Okay, and that's fair enough. Let me just frame kind of what we put on the table, and then I think we'll deal with that. For me, the $200,000, and I said this a minute ago before you made your point, but which is a good point, obviously. I'm dealing with dollars. I was at 140,000. And Commissioner Ascento was the 200,000 plus, and so I thought, okay, to try and get this over, I'll lean that way and see if we can get this done. But I reckon, so while that doesn't mean that we're giving away the air conditioning issue at all, it just means that we were borrowing a figure that has some semblance of substance in the report. So to your point, yes, whatever the Bureau of Engineering needs to do with or without Kemp Brothers to get the air conditioning operating to the level that the contract requires, you have a quorum of us here telling you to do that. And what I would want, Deborah and Alan, is whatever that takes, that should be included back to the board for our next hearing, for us to consider globally as we deal with all of this, okay? And Kemp Brothers has heard it too. But thank you for raising that, and that's an important element for us, because, as I'm sure you can anticipate, if we are able to reach agreement and we are able to get to a release, both sides are going to want a release to be a standard release where we're releasing all claims, including LDs, including the air conditioning issue. We want to button this thing up and tie the bow on it and close it. So I think that's an important point.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, that'll be, so this matter will be continued to September the 6th, 2017. Let me just ask this real quick while we're all here. Is that enough time, or do you think we ought to go out to the 13th? Gary, we've got our city engineer here.
The holiday
I don't mind the 13th, but
Gary Lee-Moore, city engineer. We're fine with the 13th.
Oh, I said city engineer. Yeah.
It's fine with us to go to the 13th.
Okay. Why don't we go to the 13th? I would still like the documents from either side a week from today. Yeah, the 1st. Unless the air conditioning issue, Deborah, is something that happens after the 1st, and then you'll inform us of that when you can. But the next hearing will be on September 13th. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so have we cleared the desk, Mr. Mendoza? Well, I'll let you do that with Bureau of Engineering rather than the board. Yeah, because if that's a non-issue, but we're not going to have to hear about it on the 13th, that would be great. So I think we've cleared the desk, Mr. Mendoza?
Yes, you have.
Okay. Well, we've worn through a few folks today, and we've got our substitutions in. So we are adjourned, and there will be no management meeting today due to the time of the day. Thank you, everybody.